No mai, haere mai, piki mai, kake mai, kia ora e tiwi, and welcome to 30 with me, Guyon Espiner. You know the drill, 30 minutes, one guest and no cut. So what we record is what you get. Amnesty International, it's one of the world's most influential human rights groups, campaigning against wars, corruption, poverty and economic inequality. The Secretary-General of Amnesty International is our guest, Dr. Agnès Callamard. Before leading Amnesty International, she served as the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Arbitrary Executions, and her investigations brought international attention to some grotesque abuses of power. But how relevant is Amnesty International and the system of multilateralism that it supports in a world where strong men like Presidents Trump, Xi and Putin increasingly call the shots? And what does this breakdown in the international order mean for small states like New Zealand? Let's start the clock, 30 minutes, with Agnès Callamard. Kia ora and welcome to 30.
Thank you for having me.
This is your first official visit to New Zealand, I believe, so welcome.
Thank you.
One of the obvious areas for human rights groups internationally is to focus on New Zealand's treatment of Indigenous people and our attitude to Indigenous rights. How is New Zealand seen and how is it viewed by Amnesty International in terms of its treatment and its handling of Indigenous rights?
Well, look, like all colonial, former colonial, current colonial powers, New Zealand has a history of colonial violence and authoritarian practices against the Māori people. What we do know is that over the years, over the decades, there has been a trajectory which was a good one, a positive one towards not only acknowledging the right of the Maori people to their land, the notion that they never receded the right to their land, and all the self-determination rights attached to that realization. So over the years, we have noted a good trajectory. It does not mean that there have been no violations. It does not mean that Maori are not the majority of those of kids, for instance, in social care, that they are dominating maybe the prison population, that there is a colonial way of the crown, the public state dealing with the Maori population. But the trajectory was a good one. What we do notice is that over the last few years, that trajectory is starting to bend. And that is a big worry. We are hearing suggestion that in fact the Maori maybe have receded rights to their land, that maybe their right of maritime water is not quite there. And that worries us a great deal. So I hope that this bend, this U-turn is going to be shifted, and we need to have a proper trajectory, a progressive trajectory, and one which is which gives Maori people control over their rights and over their land.
Okay, we'll return to some of those themes a little later in the interview, but I wanted to focus on the international climate as well. And I looked at your annual report for 2025, where you talk about unprecedented forces hunting down the ideals of human rights for all, seeking to destroy an international system forged in blood and grief of World War II. What are these forces? And how are they doing this, to you, sir?
Well, an evident force is President Trump and the American presidency. And one of the first measures taken by President Trump has been to undermine, attack in fact, some will say trying to annihilate the international system. He has withdrawn yet again from the Paris Agreement on climate change. He has withdrawn from the Human Rights Council. He has withdrawn from the WHO, the World Health Organization. He is threatening to withdraw all of the funds that they are giving to the United Nations. He has criticized the UN in the most incredible term at the UN General Assembly last month. And he is insisting that the multilateral system must go. Why? The primary reason is that because it's not serving the interest of the United States. They are okay with the Security Council because they can control it through the use of veto. They are not okay with anything else because they can't control it. They are one among many states. The one thing about the UN is that it is one state, one vote, one power, and that they can't stand.
But what do you say to critics of that multilateral system, critics of the UN, who say that Donald Trump has forced a ceasefire in Gaza, has a peace plan for Gaza? Yes, it's fragile. Yes, it might be late, but hasn't he achieved, they would argue, something that the United Nations couldn't have achieved, and that multilateralism couldn't have achieved?
It's never the role of the UN to break a ceasefire. So let's begin with the Gaza situation. The only reason we have a genocide, we have had a genocide, and we have had the annihilation of anything Palestinian in Gaza for the last 2 years is because the United States has provided a non-stop support to Israel. The fact that for the last week we have President Trump, it could have been anyone else, suddenly realizing that, hey, it may not serve our interests so well. I'm sorry. For the last 24 months, they have been providing Israel with weapons. They have shielded Israel from a Security Council resolution. So that ceasefire, more than a peace plan, is very long overdue.
Yes, but you know, some would argue better late than never. Do you give...
Absolutely, and I don't disagree with you on that one.
Well, I'd like to hear you say, do you give President Trump any credit at all for what has been achieved?
I cannot give him any credit when, for the last 10 months of power, he has shielded Israel. Everyone agrees, who is an in-depth observer, everyone agrees that this ceasefire, this deal could have been made in March. This deal could have been made in June. Okay, it's being made now, but why did we have to wait so long? Israel would never have been able to do what they've done without the support of the US.
Yes, and the United States has funded the Israeli military, the IDF, for many decades.
Yeah.
So that's nothing new, is it? But what examples are there of multilateralism, the United Nations? I mean, they have failed in terms of not only Gaza, but Syria, Myanmar, Sudan.
But what do you mean by the United Nations? Do you mean the Security Council? Look,
this is the problem, isn't it? That's the problem,
let's explain. The United Nations have two components. It's a political body, and that this is made up of state, the Security Council, and the General Assembly. These are the state. And then we have operational institutions such as the WHO that I was talking about, or UNDP.
Yes, absolutely.
So when you said they failed, who do you mean? The Security Council? The UN Secretary General has no influence on the Security Council.
Let's attack this question another way.
Okay.
What examples, if any, are there of either the United Nations or the multilateral system actually resolving major conflicts in recent years?
What do you mean? Like the Security Council resolving a conflict?
You take your pick.
I can take my pick. The problem with the Security Council at the moment, it is paralyzed. It is made up of state, not of the UN, Secretary General, made up of state who are abusing the use of the veto.
So doesn't this open the door for someone like Donald Trump? And there's a lot not to like.
He's not trying to change the Security Council.
Hang on, though. But yes, there's a lot not to like. But he is trying in Ukraine and Russia, that war. He's trying for peace in Gaza, and he has had some success in areas where the multilateral system that many talk and love and crusade about has not achieved
that. But Guyon, let me repeat it. The failure of the Security Council to end what's happening in Gaza is because of the United States. For the last 24 months, the United States has made it impossible for the Security Council to play its role. Let it be very clear, at every turn the United States has vetoed any attempt by the Security Council, including those driven by the so-called allies, such as France and the United Kingdom. At every turn, the United States has made it impossible for the Security Council to play its role. So the fact that suddenly they are now breaking a ceasefire, having made it impossible for anyone else to do anything meaningful for the last 24 months, I'm sorry, I'm not jumping with, I'm happy for the ceasefire. I'm super happy that the awful bombs have stopped, but I'm not going to thank the United States for having waited 24 months to take action when they could have done it within 3 months of the beginning of the genocide.
I mean, in his first term too, and you look at it, I mean, he reduced military footprint to some degree in Afghanistan and the Middle East, and he's clearly not interested in...
His predecessor started the first move out of Afghanistan.
Sure. Yes, Joe Biden did. But he's not a warmonger, is he?
I don't know. I mean, I was at the NATO summit.
How do you feel about that?
I was at the NATO summit in June. What I can tell you is that every European nation was falling upon themselves to please Donald Trump and the US. He is asking for every NATO member to devote 5% of their budget to defense. And I can quote the US ambassador, the first word he said, when at NATO, he said, we are opening a renaissance period for the defense industry. That was the first statement that the US ambassador gave to the NATO participant. I think it says it all.
Yes, we are in something of an arms race now, aren't we? Okay.
We are absolutely in an arms race.
Yes. So if multilateralism is dwindling, if it's on the wane, where does that leave a small nation state like New Zealand that utterly depends, being small and relatively defenceless in the international context, where does that leave us?
First, I would like to say that we are fighting back. The fact that the United States and Russia to another extent are trying to annihilate the international system does not mean that everyone else does. Over the last 24 months, and indeed even longer than that, since Russia's aggression in Ukraine, we have had many states insisting that multilateral institution or institution created over the last 80 years after World War II, that those institutions are still meaningful. That include the International Criminal Court, the International Court of Justice, UNRWA, the UN Refugee for Palestinian Refugee Agency, the WHO, and so on and so forth. South Africa has been a strong defender of the multilateral system. Europe is insisting, or many of them.
So you think you will be able to push back on...
So that we are pushing back, they are pushing back, the majority of the state are pushing back. So that's the first thing. Where is New Zealand interest in that? New Zealand interest is, as a small nation, is absolutely in the protection of a rule-based order. As a small nation, it will be eaten by superpower who are intending to let the rule of weapon drive the game.
What do you mean by that? What would being eaten look like?
What will be eaten will look like you would have your trade, your maritime water. You will be forced to adopt certain policies. Attacks on your autonomy as a state.
Do you think that's a real risk for New Zealand?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a real risk for every state right now because of the breakdown of the rule-based order. This is why the African countries, the Latin American countries with a few exceptions, are saying, wait a minute, we've spent 80 years to build that system, it's not perfect, and now that it's starting to deliver something good for us, you want to destroy it so that it can serve your interest. And, New Zealand need to understand that its interest
do you think,
reside
and you
in
have met
protection.
with ministers on this visit, I mean, do you think that New Zealand does understand that? Because,
Well,
well,
not sure. I mean, the current government, I'm not convinced.
because I look at its attitude on, we haven't recognised a Palestinian state. We didn't have a position at all on the US strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities, whether that was legal or not. I mean, in the past, we've had a country with, a nuclear-free policy or a strong stand against apartheid. And for a small country, we spoke with quite a loud voice.
Absolutely.
Is that still the country that you're seeing?
No. I mean, the trajectory I was pointing out for the Māori, I think is actually applicable to what's happening right now more generally with New Zealand. New Zealand has always been a country that, what is the expression? Shot above its weight.
Yeah, punch above its weight.
In human rights terms, in solidarity terms, in by holding the line on a number of very fundamental questions. Right now, this is not what is happening.
What is the evidence of that?
Well,
why do you say that?
I am saying that because domestically, this government, through its narrative, is having a certain Trumpian accent, shall we say. It's constant focus on economic issue, it's securitization of the public space, it's a use of urgencies. Of course, we're not talking of what Trump is doing with the executive orders, but these are red flags. These are red flags, I think, for the New Zealand people, because, the shift can happen very quickly. So, at Amnesty International, we are worried about this evolution. Internationally, we don't hear New Zealand. We haven't heard New Zealand on some of the fundamental challenges that we are confronting, including the genocide, Israel's genocide of Palestinians, or climate.
Do you think that is because New Zealand is worried, like a lot of countries, about our national interest, about our economic interest, that this guy in the White House with the orange hair could suddenly turn around and slap a massive tariff on, or just, start breaking things?
Of course, as somebody I met told me, yes, this is a global trend, but why did we have to join? And I think New Zealand did not have to join and should not join, and other states are not joining, and we need governments and society such as the New Zealand society that has a history of a trajectory of understanding the importance of the rule of law.
So do you think
we need them to stand up?
Dr. Callamard, do you think that, is this being noticed internationally, New Zealand's silence on these issues?
Yes.
Do you think?
Of course. I mean, we're noticing the dwindling voices coming from the Western world.
Did you tell ministers or government representatives that you met about this?
Yes. I did, and I also did to you, and I've done it to many in the context of
And what was their reaction?
They
did
not resonate very positively, shall we say. There is they don't see it that way. I see it that way. We just have to leave it at that. We have different views on how New Zealand stand right now, and it is a critical juncture for the world. And any voice that we don't hear anymore for the protection of the rule-based order is dramatic, is really a problem. So I want to invite the New Zealand people and New Zealand leaders to really, please speak up, speak loud. We need you.
I just want to touch on extrajudicial killings, because you had a big role with the United Nations before you took up this job, and I think you reported on the Jamal Khashoggi murder. There were drug war executions in the Philippines that I think you looked at. But I look now at the US bombing 9 boats in the, one of them was in the Pacific, actually, and mainly in the Caribbean. And these are mainly Venezuelan boats that it says are drug trafficking. But there's no trial, there's no judicial process.
Absolutely.
So
that's the breakdown of rule-based order. You have here an
so these are extrajudicial
example.
killings, really,
absolutely. They are absolutely extrajudicial killings. There is, under international law, you could, attack some boat if there is an imminent threat to your nation. We all know that this is not happening. If you want to argue that drug is a threat, okay. Imminent threat is really, doesn't apply. Every legal scholars will tell you there is no imminent threat coming out of this boat. There is no ongoing war between the US and Venezuela or the US and Colombia. In terms of, from a human rights law standpoint, the situation really does not apply. There is no direct threat to life, which could justify this kind of action. What should happen is you stop the boat. You stop the boat, you arrest the people, and you try them. That's what should happen. So it's absolutely extrajudicial execution, and it is also extraterritorial. So it raises all kinds of questions regarding the increasing of tensions between countries.
Okay. I wanted to switch to another one of your roles before you took up this one, which was you were the Director of Global Freedom of Expression, weren't you, at Columbia University? So I just wanted to quickly talk about free speech and the status of free speech, particularly in the wake of the Charlie Kirk shooting and a lot of debate which has emanated right through the world and into New Zealand. Are we in a free speech deficit at the moment? How do you see it?
Yeah, we are in a free speech deficit. We are in a situation where, according to our findings, the multiplication of laws shrinking, the ability of people to dissent, the ability of people to protest, the ability of people to speak on sensitive issues, that is shrinking. We have a number of countries that pride themselves on their commitment to freedom of expression, adopting laws that target environmental activists and climate speech.
How much weight do you put in the argument that the left side of politics broadly engaged in cancel culture too hard, and what you're seeing is a pushback in the pendulum from the right, and they're saying, well, you cancelled us, we're going to sort of cancel you. Do you see it that way at all?
No, I mean, I'm not in the cancelling whatever culture. No,
You're a strong free speech advocate?
I am a strong free speech advocate. I am not an absolutist, meaning along the lines of the First Amendment of the United States. I recognize the right of the state, indeed, its obligation to regulate speech that incite violence, speech that incite discrimination. And there is a good jurisprudence on all of those things that we can rely upon to regulate disinformation and hate speech online. We are not in that situation. At the moment, we have big tech companies that are driving hatred online through algorithm because it is good business, and we have state actually neglecting what's happening with hatred and focusing on what they don't want to hear, which is a climate activist and pro-Palestinian activist. That is a problem. But we have a framework to deal with and to regulate speech. It's just not being implemented.
Well, just on that and briefly, how worried are you about AI, artificial intelligence, and the lack of regulation in that space?
Extremely worried. Extremely worried.
What worries you about that?
Everything worries me. We have an unprecedented transformation of everything driven by AI, including probably what it means to be human. And the implication of generative AI, or the way it's being implemented right now for non-discrimination in particular, are enormous. We have documented the misuse of AI in facial recognition, in surveillance technology, targeting minorities, targeting Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza. So there is also a strong military component targeting Romas in Central Europe. All of those automated decision makings are not delivering good decision making, and they are removing the capacity of people to even know how to raise issues and complaint, because it's like a black hole, okay? So that's a big problem. And then we have the bigger problem, I will say, which is the automated weapon system that AI is promising as part of the weapon race. What will it mean? It will mean that we will give to a machine the capacity to decide life or death. We are removing potentially human intervention. At the moment, there is a lot of automated weapon, but not for the decision to kill. What a number of countries would want to do is to actually give the machine the decision to kill. And we know that in war, the focus has been historically on the elimination of groups of people, either because of their race, because of their ethnicity, because of their religion. That is what AI is giving the power to do so, because through AI you can actually distinguish between people. In a public space, the AI can say, okay, there are 4 blacks, 3 Asian, 5 white. And the weapon can actually kill any one of those that you decide need to disappear. That power is, the level of destruction inherent in automated weapon and in the use of AI is, so frightening. And there is no regulation.
It is potentially very frightening, isn't it? Just about 5 minutes to go. I wanted to touch briefly on Amnesty International as an organization and where it gets its money. And I was reading through your accounts, and I see that about 10% of your income is what you call restricted funds.
Yeah.
And these are monies from corporate donors or trusts, individuals. Yeah. And as far as I could work out, these are funds that you can't choose how to spend. These are financial gifts tied to a certain to a certain outcome.
Not quite.
Is that right?
Not quite. So first of all,
someone, just to get this clear, someone, a rich individual, could donate a certain amount of money to Amnesty International with the proviso that it only gets spent on a certain thing, right?
It will be difficult. True? It will be difficult.
But that's the nature of this restricted fund, isn't it?
No, not quite. So first of all, 90% of Amnesty's budget...
I'm talking about the 10%.
I know, but people need to understand 90% of our budget comes from the average citizen. The professors, the nurse who give money.
But I'm talking about the 10%
The
that is restricted funds.
are mostly big foundations. So we're talking Open Society, Ford, MacArthur.
Sure.
How do we do that? We put together our programs, our budget. We say, this is what we need to do. This is what we want to do. Are you prepared to fund it? That's how it's working. Now, there is a small number that comes from legacy.
You can't choose how to fund that. You can't choose how to spend that money, though, can you?
Yes, of course.
Well, but it must go to the purpose that they wanted it to go to.
No. In terms of our relationship with Open Society or Ford or the big foundation, no. We go to them with a proposal, and it is their decision to fund it or not to fund it.
Okay, so you don't feel compromised at all by that?
It's different with legacy. Let me be very open. Legacy is very important for many NGOs around the world. The legacy from people dying is an important source of funding. Still very small, but and when people donate their money in death, they may suggest something. They may say, "Look, I want to give my money for work on Asia." Either you accept it and you will work on Asia, or you refuse it. It's up to us.
All right.
Voilà.
Okay, just a couple of minutes left in this conversation, but I just wonder what you see as Amnesty International's relevance today. Is that on the wane too, do you think?
Well, I think right now there are millions of people around the world that are outraged, that are angry, and sometimes desperate because they don't know what to do. Everything you look around is in a state of disarray right now.
Is that how you feel?
No, I don't. I feel that we are facing really strong forces, a la Donald Trump, who run the most powerful country in the world, or Putin. What I do know is that I am part of a global majority of people who want to fight back.
Yeah,
and what we offer at Amnesty, what we offer people is a way of thinking of their collective responsibility and of their collective action. We are offering avenues to fight back. We are offering actions. We are organizing protests. We are organizing strategies to fight what's happening in a given country. We are proposing to visit prisoners. We are doing a lot of things. And it is a way for people to channel that frustration, this anger, this desperation, because people must fight back, but they can't do that alone. I'm just talking to everyone here. You need to join a group. If it's Amnesty, it's great, but you can join any group. Right now, we need collective action. Don't fight alone. You will not be able to survive, but fight with others. We are part of a majority. We can fight back. We must fight back.
Thank you very much for sharing that passion and your thoughts with us on 30. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, Guyon.
That was 30 Minutes with Agnès Callamard. This is 30 with me, Guyon Espiner. We'll catch you next time. Ka kite.